Thanks for that introduction, Jerry, and thanks to Stewie and the Vertical Events team for what is always a very well-organised and highly informative event. So thank you for that and for giving me the opportunity to update on what we're doing with Fundalara. There's a disclaimer again, so Rick and I can share on that one and read through it in detail afterwards, and the usual other required legislative stuff. Shareholders, the normal 337 million shares. I mean, we're capped at about 20 million. We announced yesterday a share purchase plan pitched at 5 cents, which was a 20% discount to the last price of 6.1 before that. That has obviously brought the share price back down to about 5.2, 5.3. So we're capped, as I say, around about 20 million. We had 2 million on hand at the end of March. But the reason we put the SPP out is because our burn rate has consistently been $1 million a quarter, and we are explorers always at minimum of 2/3 of the money that we have in the treasury that's spent goes in the ground every quarter. We are adamant that we will continue to be that. We don't sit on our cash. People who invest in junior exploration companies want them to explore, and that's what we will continue to do. Sometimes not as quickly as some people might like, but we are always endeavouring to do things as quickly as we can. And the main reason is that we all have investment in the company as well. We have no reason to delay anything happening. Our future is reliant upon success, same as all shareholders. Top shareholders, Ragged Range, is our chairman and founder, Phil Crabb. Chin nominees are our 3 Singaporean Chinese brothers who are very friendly to Phil and to the board and to the company as a whole. The MPI nickel, that's a legacy holding from Norilsk from when we had nickel assets at Copernicus in the past. Top 20 hold about 40%. As I say, board and management hold about 20%, all of which has been bought either on market or through rights issues or shortfall. So we have real skin in the game. We are dedicated in trying to achieve the objective of success at the operation. You'll see also the $900,000 of the Hayes Creek sale transaction, second tranche, which was originally due July last year, has been extended again, and that's primarily due to the negative impact of the poor uranium market and the outlook and the sentiment for that at the moment. It is in best interest of shareholders that we allow the purchaser to continue their current endeavours to crystallise or monetize the value of the asset through either a listing or through sale themselves. Most of these data, the last sort of 3 or 4 months, we've actually underperformed the all resource or the small resources index, which is primarily reflecting the impact of the lithium stocks and the gold stocks in that sector. But over the last 2 years, I'm very happy with how we've managed to track in what have been very adverse circumstances, and we've kept a pretty good result on that. The main thing that's happening now with us and the price catalysts that will, I believe, change the recent past performance of the share price will be the drill targets I'm really addressing in this discussion, both at Red Boar and our gold assets. Incidentally, these presentations are available both in hard copy at the booth, on our website, and the video that's within this presentation is also available for access through our website. Warwick said earlier on in his speech that 80% of a decision is management. I've been desperately waiting for a couple of birthdays so that my almost 200 years can now be 200 years of resource experience within our 5 guys, which means we're all over 50. So we may be grey-haired, but we have an immense amount of experience and still an immense amount of enthusiasm to deliver success for ourselves and for shareholders, obviously. 4 core regions of operation. Nalia Basin I'll address very, very briefly at the end. Pine Creek is probably number 3, but it's still got some very, very interesting assets that we need to pursue. East Kimberley, the main interest there is probably a nickel free carried interest we have with Panoramic, but the Dulguna Murchison region is our primary focus through the Curara Well, Red Boar gold copper assets, and also the recent or late last year acquisition of the Red Dragon gold prospects, which was a very, very timely and strategic decision, which is, I think, ready to bear fruit. This is a slide that will have been seen before by quite a few people. I think the main thing to focus on here is at the bottom right, the gravity data that we've recently, or during this year, we've redefined VMS targets at depth there, and I'll explain exactly why we're getting really quite excited about what this may hold for us. The other thing, of course, is the results that fired a lot of interest back in July 2014 were the 7 metres at 28%. copper that we hit at about 30 metres depth, that was massive chalcopyrite 30 metres from surface, and that is highly relevant, and I'll explain why as we proceed with this. The prospector Bill Richmond, a very challenging partner, but he's been good with us in the way that we've developed the understanding of what to do now that we've sorted out the court case a couple of years ago, and we have 90% in both Curara Well and Red Boar, and he has a 10% free carried in chest through to decision to mine. The relevance of this slide, which has been seen by anybody who's been following us for a while, is the proximity of the DeGrussa ore bodies. Those coloured dots are basically the surface extensions, the trace at surface of where those ore bodies lie, and the area to the northwest corner from conductor 5 is about 200 metres. So the zone around the Gossan target here at Impaler, Gossan to the plant at DeGrussa, which sits there, is about 1,000 metres. So it's no distance at all. You know, we are surrounded by sandfire in our granted mining licence, and that's probably a pain in the backside for them through just the logistical issues of having to go around us the whole time. But it also means that some people say, if we find something at Red Boar, why wouldn't we develop it ourselves? Well, the main reason is because you've got a plant that treats exactly that material less than a kilometre away, where there's already been $400+ million worth of capital spent on that. And my background with Westpac in finance, in investment banking area there, it's very clear that you don't sit there and try and reconstruct a new plant when you've already got one that close. No financial model would allow it. So if we find anything, and I believe we will, there's only one place that material is going to end up, and that's through the DeGrussa plant. And they would love that to happen because they basically have a free option on the land we're looking at. And the fact that we're exploring under a different mindset to their own exploration teams mean that they have an additional set of intellectual property and brain power looking at what we have and what we might find, and that can be translated to their own work. And similarly, we rely on some of the announcements that they make. And there is a particular relevant announcement that came out of the Monty resource statement that I'll address in a minute. This was one of the aeromagnetic images that we had over the Red Boar tenement. And what is relevant, the red blobs there are effectively dolerites, near-surface dolerites. So you look at the shape of that, it's clear that there's a couple of east-west structures that are essentially dolerite, and that was relevant when I move on to that's magnetics, when I move on to the gravity data, which forms the core of our current target. When we first found the mineralisation at Gossan and found that it was associated, the chalcopyrite was associated with magnetite, it was clear that the magnetics allowed us to target other opportunities, and that's when we found the Impaler mineralisation, which we thought in the past might have been a series of pipes that would lead down to a bigger deposit at depth, and that they were feeders. What has now happened with the deeper drill holes we completed earlier this year under both Impaler and Gossan has allowed us to see that what we have in the footwall of the Impaler mineralisation is a dolerite on the footwall and a doleritic sill, and the mineralisation at Impaler appears to be supergene, so it's enrichment from what we've found to be primary chalcopyrite, a small grade we've found so far, within the bottom part of the volcaniclastic sequence adjacent to the footwall dolerite, and so that's basically percolated up the faults that are very prevalent around this part of the world to form a supergene enrichment at the base of oxidation. That's totally normal, and this is all about understanding what the geology is happening in different areas. The main significance of this really deep drill hole was the textures and the geology that we found in there, which demonstrated quite clearly, together with the VMS Pathfinder analysis, that we are in a VMS setting the same as at Monty and at DeGrussa and at Homer. These are some of the rocks that we saw, and as I say, the implication of some of these is highly relevant. The peperitic textures, which are indicative of hot lava going into cold sediments and fracturing and just breaking up instantly, same as with the hyaloclastites, which basically means glass, and clastite means broken. You've got the remobilized chalcopyrite at the base that I mentioned in the previous slide, plus you've got these little fiamme, which is Italian for flames. These are fine-grained sulfides, and they're found not proximal but distal to a vent. It means that there is sulfides in the system, copper in the system, all of which is highly positive and reconfirms the importance of the setting being VMS. Similarly, the syngenetic sulfides, pyrrhotite, pyrite, and a bit of chalcopyrite in the cross-cutting are all part and parcel of the proof that we are in the right setting. At Red Boar, we'd thought originally that this high-grade pod at the near surface had been a pipe. What we are now seeing is that this is high-folding, highly folded package of rocks, and what this looks like is it's remobilized, and they could well occur again in other positions within the same folding sort of structures. It is a very compacted set of rocks of the volcaniclastics between a footwall and hanging wall doleritic sills. Now, the real relevance of that is in the April 13th announcement by Sandfire and Talisman of the resource at Monty. They stated that the Monty mineralisation is bounded top and bottom by doleritic sills. So we're in the same location, same sort of rocks, you have the same geological constraints, everything is tying together with what we're seeing both on our own prospects and with the regional geology, which is reconfirmed by the work that's been put out to date by the RNI announcements as well. So you're seeing a consistent story throughout this area that is really, really encouraging for all the participants in the area. We revisited the gravity because the gravity that was originally done back in 2010 had mirrored at the surface the magnetics, so nobody had really looked at the gravity in any further detail at depth. What this is showing, these are slices and surface about 200 meters. This really shows that most of the drilling we've done was trying to establish what was happening in the top 200 meters. There have been calls for us to do deeper work in the past. The significance is that we need to know where to put the deeper work first before we just do it willy-nilly, and we now are much more happy that the approach we've taken is exactly what should have been done. This is the surface magnetics, and what you'll see is as these will go through every 20 meters, you can see those dolerite sills are coalescing and becoming now 2 from 4. They then become 1, which is quite weird. We don't know what this had meant, and all the circles there are the pierce points of drilling in the past. So when you get down to 500 meters, there's only that hole there that was left, and that's to the south of where this big dense target is, to the northwest of Gossan. So that's about 170 meters. The one that we finished the last hole on the previous program at 500 odd meters to the southwest of Gossan is probably 200 meters away from that. So downhole EM wouldn't see anything that sits in here. Why is this dense body which goes up round to the north? What is it? We think that it's a keel, and that what you've got is a folded package of this sequence that we're after, which is the dolerites top and bottom and the volcaniclastics with the Narracuda and the prospective VMS targets in the middle. And what's happening is we're getting really quite excited about what's happening here because of the Gossan mineralizations on what appears to be the footwall of the southern limb. When we looked at this thing, when we modelled the gravity, you've got another one which we've never looked at up here. We never even knew it was there. But this is interesting in its own right because it seems to mirror the shape of what we're seeing from this. So if this signature is valid and what we're seeing is representative of a target for VMS within that system, then so is this. So it's another target. DeGrussa sits just here. So this is looking south. That's the north arrow there. Impaler sits just behind that and is faulted off from some of the others by a lot of transverse faults. That's the model, which is, I can explain that in more detail. It's very simplistic, but it's very valid for the genetic model of how VMS deposits are formed around black smokers. And what we've got here is just a little video. And Shane, if you could play that for us now, that gives a bit of an insight into how these things are formed. There's no audio on this at the moment, so you'll have to listen to me, I'm afraid. We will get audio put onto it for the website a bit later. This is modelled on previous videos and animations. That main interest there, Monty, Homer, DeGrussa, Red Boar, this is the zone that is of interest. It's that package of rocks that is the margins of the Briar, which is the Narracuda. So as you're going down to the bottom of the seafloor, what happens when you're about 2 kilometers depth, this is like a doleritic sill. So this is the magmatic material that's come out before the event that is the sulfide coming up here when you get a metallogenic event. The massive sulfides are then pushed out in black smokers. This demonstrates that they're forming on top of it. They really get pushed into the middle of the very, very soft, almost liquid sediments that are at the bottom of the ocean floor at the time as well. So as that's formed, that event stops, you get another dolerite, another flow on top. So you've now got that package bounded by dolerites top and bottom. Then you'll get other interflow sediments, you'll get other events happening, and possibly over time you'll get other stacks over here as other events happen, because VMS occur in clusters. So when all this has happened, when this big period of depositional events has happened, you'll get other sediments formed on top, and then you get the folding. This is a very shallow fold demonstrated here. In real life, this has been a very, very tight folding, but you'd lose the impact. But what it's showing is that under these structures, you're going to get VMS occurring in clusters. So these sort of things are going to happen all the way along the region in the VMS camp, the field, which is that whole area that I looked at before, round from DeGrussa through Red Boar, Homer, round through Monty and through the RNI ground, which is just over here too. So what you're seeing is DeGrussa up there, Impaler, Gossan, white are the RC holes, green are previous diamond holes. This again just showing quickly that most of the drilling, when we were looking to find out what was happening, was in the top 200 meters. Some of the grades there that we've hit in the past that kept us going, gave us the excitement to continue. But what's really happening when we've remodeled this gravity, and what this is showing is flitch by flitch as it comes up, you're getting this body of folded material, the package of rocks that we're looking for, and it appears to form this sort of keel at the base, which you'll see in a second. And it's this keel down here that is our real target at the moment, about 600 meters. And as you rotate around here, that's the main one with Gossan just up there, Impalers to the south, but that's in the regional rocks. This is this other one to the north that we've not, to the northwest, that we've not really identified before, that is also interesting as a target in the next phase of drilling. This is again showing where the geological input from the drill holes, the deep drill holes, has added and supported this whole thesis of what we're doing and why we're excited about what's coming out of this. Take a slice through this whole section, you get this highly folded package of rocks through here. With these zones like here, this is where Gossan actually is. These other repetitions could exist, but this is the real thing, the keel of this folded package of where the VMS deposits may be, because with massive chalcopyrite up there, it has to have come from massive chalcopyrite at depth. You do not get primary chalcopyrite, copper mineralization, occurring near surface unless it's come from somewhere else, either as part of the same deposition or as a remobilized target. So those zones there, the red zones, are the targets that we are looking at the moment for what we want to do as the follow-up work in this next phase of program. And we're not going to hurry it. We want to make sure we get these targets right. It's really important because it could make a significant difference to what we think is going to be happening here. The other things, just saying on the red ball side of things, that's the next stage. The drilling that we're going to look at targeting through there will probably be in mid to late June. We'll start targeting. We'll do a couple of deep RC holes into that northwest target to find out what's happening there, and also the possibility of a deep RC pre-collar with a diamond tail into the core of that keel that we're after. It may well be that we drill diamond from surface into that keel because we want to get as much information as possible. I suspect that the model will be pretty much what happened at Monty, that you put the first hole down, do the downhole EM. We'll use Vortex again, who've done the same work at Monty and DeGrussa for Sandfire, so that they understand the significance of very, very subtle EM anomalies. Because generally there's no standout EM signatures on any of these deposits to date. You need somebody who knows what's happening. The other thing that's really important for where we're at is that the gold acquisitions, and more detail on this can be get if you come to the booth afterwards. Phil Crabb, who's been the longest standing gold bug around the market, I think, at the moment, with immense success through Gascoigne Gold and others in the past, loves the gold side of things, and it's through his persistence that we've ended up with a very, very attractive package and the consistent approach of what we want to do with both Tropane's find. The aim was when we acquired these things, they have to be near existing infrastructure and existing plant capacities. You've got Andy Well, 300K, just 300,000 tonnes per annum just to the north of the Garden Gully, Bluebird 3 million tonnes per annum just to the south, and around Payne's Find you've got Rothsay, Minjar, Kirkalocker on care and maintenance. But all these things, if we find something, can be crystallised and monetised through sale of resources into those assets. Garden Gully is the main thing we're looking at the moment, the first to target. Again, what we've found, we've done IP, EM and magnetics over this ground. We've got programs of work approved. The biggest bugbear and the thing that holds us up is getting the heritage clearances approved. That is outside our control. All we can do is continue to push with the traditional owners to get things happening as quick as we can, and we're working our butts off to get that to happen quickly. We're ready to drill tomorrow once we've got the clearance from the TOs. What we have are a whole load of targets through the IP, and one of the ones is this seal with its beach ball that we're looking at. These things through here have all been historically viewed as traditional Archean shear-hosted gold in greenstone belts. That area there at the base of oxidation is where the fracturing is, and it may well be that this actually isn't a major shear through here, but what you've got is an intrusive just to the below this, and also that occurs in the lines to the south here as well, which the top of that dome would fracture the overlying rocks, and you get the possibility of emplacement of gold in that area. We know we've got 21,000 ounces historical production at 21 grams through that area, so we know it's prospective, and it's a really interesting target through all these areas that we need to follow up, and we will do as soon as we get approval. Over at Mullagal, just worth mentioning, about $2 million worth of nuggets have been picked up off this tenement in the recent past, and we're really looking forward to being able to test that. The other things, have a look at the booth, have a look at the presentation. We have other assets, including Keller Creek, which is the extensions of Panoramic Savannah North operation. And then you look at Alhambra in the Northern Territory, grades like this, 8 metres at 3% from 100 metres, 5 metres at 4%. In any other junior company, these would be standout results that would help the market really go after the company, but they're lost in the excitement for us that's Red Ball. Look, there's more detail if anybody wants to talk to us at the booth. We're more than happy to discuss it. Thank you very much for listening, and we're really excited about what's going to happen with Red Ball. Thank you.